I was going behind his back for years until my kids exposed me and made me homeless without anything. Greetings, Reddit buddies. Hey everyone, how's it going? I haven't logged onto this platform in quite some time. Crazy stuff happens in life. Just when we think we have everything under control, something happens and it turns out to be a complete and utter surprise, leaving us to wonder what on earth happened to us. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Lucy. I'm a female aged 37 years and was married to my husband Rob for 12 years. We have two twin boys, Mark and Jake. Both are aged 11 years. Today I want to share how my own flesh and blood betrayed me. I mean, it's astonishing how you raise your children just for them to grow up and snatch the little joy life has finally given to you. That's exactly what happened to me. Allow me to share how these little monsters made me homeless. So here's the deal. I met my husband at a party. I was drunk as hell and he looked good. We hooked up. It was just a one-night stand initially because I wasn't looking for a relationship back then. I just wanted to get sloshed at parties with my friends and enjoy my youth. But I really had a good time in bed with Rob, so when he asked me out again, I was like, yeah, why not? It was not a relationship, but more a friends with benefits sort of situation. We both were having fun, but that fun didn't last long because even though we always used protection, I got pregnant and that too with twins. When I told this to Rob, he was excited. He was 28 years old at that time and financially stable in life. He worked at an accountancy firm. He told me that he had feelings for me and he would love to start a life with me. So that's how, ladies, gentlemen, I got in this marriage and became a mother at 25 years old. See, this wasn't my original plan, but then when life gives you lemons, you make a lemonade. If Rob was happy to take care of me and our family, I wasn't stupid enough to let it go. In this economy, it was hard to find a guy who would buy me dinner, so I was ready to be a wife to Rob and let him take care of everything. The ladies will understand what I'm saying. So yeah, we got married and gave birth to twin boys. At that time, wow, I got everything in life, but now when I know what these monsters were capable of, I'm thinking it was a mistake to bring them into this world in the first place. After the twins were born, Rob became this goody-good guy. Like he was being so good and taking care of everything nicely that it started to get on my nerves. I needed the spice in my life, but he was being the opposite of that. Every time we were doing the deed together, he used to go so gentle on me, saying all that shit about me having given birth and all. I was so annoyed with him. I started feeling suffocated in that relationship. I wanted fun and spice. I wasn't that old to live like I was living with my husband and two kids. I realized soon after marriage that this was a mistake, but what was done was done. I didn't want to take extreme measures like divorce and all that. Rob was doing everything in this marriage. He was providing for us, taking care of the kids and even sharing the chores. I wasn't giving up all that just to become a single mother and do everything by myself. I wasn't that stupid. I was just thinking if there was a middle way and finally figured out one. I could have my marriage and also have some much-needed pleasure the way I wanted. It wasn't going to hurt anyone because I was going to make sure that Rob never finds out. I started making excuses to Rob that, hey, I'm going out with my girlfriends for a spa or something. And being the kind man that he was, he would always let me. And this is where I used to have random hookups with men. I made sure that I never saw them again. Random one-night stands wasn't going to hurt anyone. I made sure that I always made the dudes use protection. I wasn't taking any chances. It was going well. I started having a better mood again. My kids were growing up well. My marriage was great. I had no reasons to complain about Rob's ways in bed because I had found a solution to that. We were all happy. When my boys turned 5, I told Rob that I want to work again. He was happy with my decision. I found a job in a hotel. I'm a receptionist, by the way. So yeah, everything was going well like I said. I was having random hookups without any strings attached. Don't judge me yet. It wasn't like I didn't love Rob. I loved my husband, but I wanted some things which he wasn't giving me, so I took care of that by myself. I think I did a decent job of protecting his heart because he didn't find out about my getting on with random dudes for so long, but then someone might have cursed me because it went all downhill. Last year, my boss retired. He was an old man in his 70s. It was a wonder he lasted this long in this job. In his place came a young guy, I mean not a child, but still around my age. He was good-looking and smart. She did show interest in him, but it wasn't like anything was going to happen between them. Rob never checked or even opened my Almira, so it was a safe coast. I went to the kitchen to get some water and made a decision to confront Chrissy at work. She was going to know who she messed up with. I went back to work after that. I made a quick stop at my boss's cabin, but he still hadn't come. I called him again only to get the same response. I needed to talk to him. He was in those pictures as well. But he has gone MIA. I went to see Chrissy, but found out that she had gone somewhere. I thought that if she was running away from me, it was futile because I was going to teach her a lesson very soon. I completed my shift and then went back home hoping to get some peace from the chaos going on in my head. I thought it was an absolute bad day, but what I saw at home ruined my entire life. All the pictures from the envelope were plastered in our home. I think I stopped breathing after I saw that. My head started spinning and my eyes didn't blink at all. My kids stood in front of me looking at me with such disgust that I couldn't bear it. When I finally whispered to them, "Who did this?" They looked at each other and told me they did it themselves. Before I could even ask why on earth would they do it, or even remove them from every surface, my husband entered the house. I wanted to disappear at that point of time. I spent years avoiding this exact situation, and yet here I was. All because of these demon children and Chrissy. Rob took his sweet time to process everything. I was preparing my speech of how I was going to seek his forgiveness and all that, but he beat me to that. But the person who spoke wasn't Rob. I mean, it was Rob speaking, but it wasn't like him at all. He was so angry that it made me scared. He asked what the F was going on in his house. Both kids looked at each other and then decided to tell him that they went to our room to find some stationery. They thought we might have kept it in our drawers in Elmira, but they actually found an envelope with all these pictures. These little childs from hell. They kept talking about how they didn't see me as their mommy anymore, but like a dirty lady, and they wanted their daddy to know everything. And so before I could hide the envelope, they got together and plastered all the pictures in the house. Rob was so patient. He told the kids to go to their room and that we needed to talk. I didn't think there was much to hide after what they have seen already, but whatever. It was better to beg for forgiveness alone. As soon as the kids were out of the room, I started speaking. I was telling him about how it was a one-time mistake, when he shushed me with a look that was so lethal. He came closer to me and held me by my hair. He asked me to tell him the truth without any delay, or I won't like what's going to come next. Yes, guys, he did that. Can you believe him? I was so scared that I started blabbering everything. His anger didn't cool off by the end of it. Instead, he got even more livid. He pushed me on the floor and then told me that I liked spice, so he was going to make everything spicy for me. I honestly didn't even recognize that man. He had always been so caring and loving to his family, I couldn't believe it was the same man. He then stood there and called his lawyer. He told them that he wanted my name removed from all his assets and that to file for divorce along with complete custody of our boys. I was kneeling down on the floor and kept telling him how sorry I was, but it all fell on deaf ear. After his call, he looked at me once and told me that he felt dirty because of me, and that he was disgusted by me. He said that he hoped it was worth it what I did behind his back because he was going to make me pay for it all my life. I knew he wasn't bluffing or anything, because this was the first time I had seen this man this angry. He practically threw me out of that house after that. I didn't know what to do, so I went to work, but my boss wasn't there, but Chrissy was. She told me that she had sent an envelope to his wife too. His absence made complete sense after that. I didn't have anything to say to Chrissy either. I spent the night at the hotel and then started looking for an apartment, but my husband had blacklisted me in the entire town. I even got fired from my job. I knew this was coming since his wife was aware now. I had to come back to my parents' house. It has been more than 2 months since that day. As an almost 40-year-old woman, it doesn't feel good to live with your parents, but whatever. My father told me that I'm a sick woman and won't even look at me. The divorce proceedings are going on. My kids don't want to look at me. My husband is making sure that I get nothing, and I think he's going to succeed at that. My mother thinks that I should start therapy because I seriously need help. Her words, not mine. I'm sharing it here so I can get some unbiased perspective from you all. You guys tell me what you think. What should I do now? I'm not really the one to out my problem, but I might be going crazy with bottling up. I was to marry my prince in shining armor, and he was calling off the engagement, and I'm panicking. Everyone's abandoned me to face the consequences of my actions alone, and I can't take it anymore. I have done some bad things in my life, and I'll admit I'm not a saint. I don't think there's anyone that's ever a saint, even you reading this, so don't judge me. I had done it because I was desperate and I needed the money. This was my once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I didn't want it to slip me by. My experience may seem a little funny and surreal, but trust me, I had gone through it firsthand. I knew what I went through, and retelling it doesn't compare to actually going through the experience. I feel safe in revealing my secrets on this platform because of the anonymity. I would be reading you all's comments on what you think you had any say over, but if you had been in my shoes, you won't waste any time. I was to be engaged like I had said before, but then my fiancé had come home one evening and demanded a full blood work to determine if I had any disease, and if I had anything that could be in my body that could affect him or our future children. I mean, if you were in my shoes, you would have felt insulted, and that would have called for grounds of disengagement, but I wasn't like you all. I came from a poor family, like deep in the Bronx ghetto, the dangerous neighborhood that made you scared to even whisper its name in the dark. That was where I was from. I would get into my past and how I grabbed my opportunity. Anyway, I wasn't going to pass up my once-in-a-lifetime opportunity just because my fiancé wanted to see if I was clean. I was clean. I knew deep within me that I was clean. So when I went to go and order a blood work done on my body and the result came out the next day, I was shocked. I was shocked beyond repair. I had an infection. It wasn't anything long-term, but I needed to have it terminated. This was going to ruin everything I had planned in place. I went mad with worry. What was I going to do? I had to set things right, and I went the wrong route. My husband-to-be was a thorough man, and he was going to find out if I faked the results. I needed to get rid of it, so I went to the hospital for a consultation the next day, and the cost of treatment wasn't something I had on hand. And if I used my insurance, my fiancé was going to be notified, and he was going to know what I intended to cover up. I couldn't let him know. How in the world had I gotten the infection, you may ask? But I had no idea. My fiancé hadn't slept with me ever since we started seeing each other. Along with being a thorough man, he was also disciplined, and the only thing we did was heavily flirting and maybe occasional kisses, but he didn't get past that. He made sure of it. He was saving himself till marriage. And I wasn't a virgin. I had known my way around before. It had been what I had used to get by before, and he knew, and he didn't seem to mind, but I stopped when he came into my life. I hadn't slept with no one else since we'd been together, so I had just chalked up the infection to getting it from a WC system, or I had come in contact with someone who had it. But anyway, I needed to treat it without my fiancé knowing. Without asking him for money to do it, if not, he would know about it and dump my ass. I couldn't have that. I needed the money, and I did a terrible thing to get it. I became a date for hire. I got the gig through my cousin, and he had agreed to keep it quiet and hush-hush. What I hadn't expected was for me to see another surprise when I got there. 2 guys. I had only been paid to be on a date with one person, and when I had seen 2, I had made to leave, I promised, but I had been offered double the price, paid times 2. I couldn't give up such an offer. It had been too good to be true, and it was more money than what I could do with. I could afford the treatment and get something nice for myself with just half of what they were paying me, and I could put the other half to my savings in case of a rainy day. It was a perfect plan. That night was supposed to be one of the good nights in my life. I had landed rich clients, and I could still keep my fiancé without him ever finding out. I had told him I was going to see one of my good friends tonight and would be back late because we would be planning wedding stuff. He had given me the go-ahead to stay in my friend's house because he didn't want me coming home late, so it was the perfect opportunity with my dates. I could spend enough time with them before going to sleep in a hotel for the night and returning home in the morning. I didn't have many friends like that here. By here, I meant my fiancé's side of life, and the ones I knew were definitely out to ruin me. Or they plain didn't like me. It was clear from how much they sneered at me any time I was with my fiancé. I wouldn't even call them friends, so I had nowhere else to go but the hotel. I was doing it for a good cause, that was what I had told myself. Because frankly, I was doing it for a good cause. Money and to save my upcoming marriage. I wanted to marry for wealth. There's no girl that you would see out there that wasn't hoping for some rags to riches story. There are those that put in the work to claim it, of which I was part of them. Then there were those that luck was just on their sides. Luck had never been on my side for anything. I realized in horror that my life was meant to be difficult when my fiancé banged his hand down on the table where I was with my 2 dates and called me a whore and a cheat. I wanted the ground to open up and swallow me then because I had been caught. How he had known where to find me, I had no idea, but I had to act quickly. My fiancé threw a tantrum and flipped over the table where we were seated while he demanded answers. Answers that I couldn't give him. The restaurant staff gave us hate-filled looks, and my fiancé didn't look to be done unless I gave him answers, so I lied. I did a terrible thing, and all because I needed money. I lied that the men were my cousins. Well, one of them was my cousin, while the other was his friend. Long-distance cousin who lived in London but had flown into New York for the week and decided to catch up with me as they heard I was getting married. That was the worst lie I had ever told in my existence, but I was desperate. Luckily, the guys didn't seem to mind the fact that O had just lied on their heads. I didn't know I was being played for a fool. The lie seemed to have cooled my fiancé down, and he left the restaurant. I followed after him and told the 2 guys that I was going to text them later. I don't know what was over me. I don't know how I still had the audacity to still want to collect my money from them. Trust me, I'm not usually like this, but you need to understand that I wasn't going to lose the man I had bagged. Like I had mentioned earlier, I came from a poor and wretched place, and back there was like the Hunger Games. We had to struggle to know where our next meal would come from. My mother worked 5 jobs. 2 2-hour shifts in the morning, another 2 shifts from 1 to 7 in the afternoon, then another one from 7 till 10 in the night when she would get back. That I should use my money and he would reimburse me later, that all his money had gone into his company and he was going to reap rewards, but it was going to take a little time. Our wedding was to be in 4 months and I had no money on my own. I had spent my savings taking care of my lifestyle because I knew I wasn't going to get any money from him, and he was telling me to pay for wedding expenses with my money. That had been so laughable, but I had seen it as genuine. But I really didn't have any money, so the wedding expenses were going to wait till something came up from his end. I had tried talking to him and telling him that he was supposed to have set aside a little money for our wedding, but it had been to no avail. He said he didn't have the money right at that moment, and that was how we put our wedding plans on hold. Damn, I should have seen the signs. I should have known he was withdrawing. I was good at reading people. How did I not see what my fiancé was doing? I made a huge mistake, and the mistakes didn't just stop. I hadn't been overly conscious of the fact that he may look into me. I had been blindsided, and it pained me to my core. I had begun treating the infection that had come up in my blood work. The men had given me part of the money and told me they would give me the full money when I completed my end of the bargain. I wouldn't have been pushed to complete my end of the bargain if my fiancé hadn't turned into a vault. I couldn't get anything from him. I couldn't get money. I couldn't get him to talk about his feelings. He was like a vault. I thought that maybe during the course of our marriage I would grow to love him or something, but I didn't see it happen from the characters he was displaying. Most women enter into marriages for something. Some whether for love, some get into it for the safety it provides. Some enter it to avoid being the gist for their friends' gossip, while majority enter it for money. The feeling of comfort money provides. Yes, I am jaded, but I grew up to view the world as a two-way street. Do this and get this in return. So I did something else. I needed money. The little savings I had was gone, and my fiancé wasn't ready to take up the wedding expenses. I wanted this marriage, and I was going to do anything to get it. LOL, I can count how many times I've mentioned I needed money in this narration, but that was the truth of the matter. My marriage was on the line. Everything I had worked for was on the line. I wouldn't have been pushed to do this if my fiancé hadn't started up the fireworks with the intention to burn me in the process. I went to meet the men again. I was being owed, and I intended to collect. I chose the restaurant this time to be in a quiet place where he couldn't catch me. He had traveled for the week, but it was better to be safe than sorry. So I went back to my old job of being an escort to get money. I needed to finalize my plans for the wedding and pay a deposit for the wedding hall. I did my job that night and went back home peacefully with a smiling bank account. That had been a good catch. And no, I didn't sleep with them. I just escorted them on a date and was theirs for the night. Luckily, they didn't ask to take the date to the other room, just to a club after dinner. At least I got the money I wanted. I could make a deposit for the hall while my fiancé was sorting out his financial issues. You guys, that was supposed to be it. I was supposed to be done with that and the 2 men, but it turned out that they weren't done with me. It started with little threats. I had used them to cover up, so they needed me to pay them back in cash, or they were going to go to my fiancé and expose who I truly was. I had never been more shocked the day I got the message from them. I was even more shocked than when my fiancé had caught me in the restaurant with them. At least that day there had been a way out. The day they sent the message, I knew there was definitely no way out unless I did what was told. I had decided to call their bluff, then they sent me pictures of me dancing in the club with them and making out with random guys. I had been so out of it at the club that I hadn't remembered myself or what I had done there the next morning. What had they wanted? Well, they wanted what everyone usually wanted: money. They wanted $50,000 in exchange for their silence, a whopping sum of $50,000. That was 10 times what they had paid me for being their escort. No wonder they hadn't touched me. That would have been more leverage in my opinion, but they hadn't touched me, which had been weird. I had no idea where I was going to get that sum of money from, and I made it known to them that I couldn't give them that amount of money because I didn't have it. They gave me 2 weeks to get it done and transfer it to them. If not, they would go to my fiancé with the truth. My fiancé came back from his trip over the next week. That full week I had lost my mind and gained it back, and looked like the trip had gone well for him. I brought it up at dinner, that I needed over $70,000 to plan the wedding, and if he wasn't going to give it to me, it meant he didn't love me. Yeah, when we women see that situation is getting out of hand, we bring out the big guns. So I did. I guilt-tripped my fiancé and brought the tears. But it was true. He didn't love me. If he did, he would have everything in place for the wedding instead of pushing me into a tight corner. He was the one with the most notable people on his family side, so I argued that the wedding needed to be big when he asked me what I needed for that amount of money. In truth, I was going to give my blackmailers $50,000 and then manage to plan the wedding with 20 grand. If it wasn't enough for the wedding, I could always tell him the money wasn't enough for the wedding. He gave me the money and I gave it to the men and blocked my line. I thought I had put it behind me. I didn't know that I was digging a deeper grave for myself by myself. As with blackmailers, they didn't go away. They found a way to contact me again and demanded the same amount of money. I told them I couldn't give them that sim again and what I had was lesser, and they agreed. I should have said no, but they held a very tight cord over my neck. So I plotted to steal my fiancé's money. I knew his signature. I signed it on a check when he had traveled again. I had gone to withdraw the money from his bank. I didn't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking at all. I still had this useless notion that marriage to my fiancé was still going to work when I should have taken the money from his bank and gone into hiding. That would have been the best thing for me to do, honestly. I still thought that marriage to my fiancé was going to work when he didn't care about me one bit. The bank didn't give me any hassle with withdrawing the money. That should have been the first sign that something was very wrong with what I was doing, but I had ignored it like all the other signs that had screamed that I abandoned the marriage and run away. My castle of lies was crumbling, but I still thought I could live the Cinderella dream, from rags to riches. I was the stupid one, and I slipped and made mistakes, and I couldn't get out of them. I got the money, and they told me that they wanted it delivered in person. The fact that they made demands was obviously a trap that hadn't even occurred to me, and I had gone to go and give it to them and met with my end. But after that, my fiancé had gotten back from his trip again and said he had a surprise for me. That he had put me through a lot of stress with the wedding planning alone, and he wanted to make up for it. He had thrown a little dinner for me that evening, so my plan was to hand over the money and head for the dinner party. I had been so happy that my fiancé was finally turning around and everything was going how it was supposed to. My fiancé didn't question where I was going before the dinner, but I had lied that I was going for my hair appointment. I handed over the money to them and they started laughing, and my fiancé came out from where he was hiding in the location. I had been made. I tried to run away, but I was blocked by the men, and my fiancé raised his phone. And everything began to make sense. The men had gotten to him and he had paid them more to catch me in the act. However, that was what I thought was happening, but it wasn't even close. My fiancé raised up his phone and showed how he had tracked me. I didn't even know when he had set up a tracker. There were a lot of things I didn't know, like who the man that had stood in front of me since. I thought my castle of lies had crumbled from the point I had gone to get a test, but my fiancé had been chipping at it from behind the scenes. He said he knew about everything, from how he knew I wasn't who I said I was, to the hospital result, to my contacting the two men, to my going to his bank. He had set everything up to test me, and I had failed drastically. He wanted to know what I would do if time got tough with him and how I would get money to spend. He knew I was vain and thought I could change, but from what he had seen, our marriage wasn't going to work. I was a gold digger, and he wasn't going to allow someone who was a nobody to rob him in plain sight. I was the nobody to him, LOL. I got an earful, and when I thought it was done and over, that I could still live my life after him. Our engagement was over, but at least I got some money from him. But then I heard the police sirens and police officers were coming to greet me. This man had me arrested for falsifying his signature and wanted to press charges. He wanted to reduce me to nothing, and he was going to get away with it. I have used up all my money, and now I'm going to serve a 3-year jail sentence for forgery. And I just wanted to get this out there before I have everything taken away from me. I didn't do anything wrong, I just wanted to survive, to make it out of the poor herd.